Well, welcome to Rob's Fix-It Shop. So I have something really cool in the shop today. This is a Magnavox AstroSonic console stereo. It looks like it's from maybe the mid to late 60s, probably a little bit later 60s. And I don't know whether it works or not. Somebody brought it to me and they asked me if I would fix it up so they could give it to their grandchildren as a keepsake. And I said, sure, I can do that. But like I say, I don't know what's working and what's not. I think I'll take a look at it, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the stereo out, put it on the bench, and take a look at it and see what's running and not. And I think what I'm going to do, if it's not working, I'm going to fix it. And if it is working, either way, I'm going to, probably refurbish it, put new capacitors in it, and make sure everything's up and running right, and the tuner's all aligned, and get it so that it's back up into its original condition as far as working and sounding great. And so if you're interested in that, stick around, and I think it's going to be a pretty fun project. So let's take a quick look around and see what we've got. Yeah, it's got all the fake drawers as required by the Console Stereo Builders Association, and even real fake keyholes there so that you can lock up these doors that don't open. So let's take a look inside. We're at the stereo part. This looks newer than the one I worked on last time, but yeah, so it's got some really cool colors in here. Stereo phonograph, tape. So tape will be nice because I'll be able to maybe hook up a Bluetooth receiver to it. The turntable looks relatively modern, I don't know, but this is a problem here with this platter is hard as a rock, so we'll have to do some noodling over that and figure out how to fix that. Then on the other side, the wheels, because it is really a beast. It was heavy to carry in here. This is where we put all our record albums, and so yeah, so that's a look at the outside, and I think it's got speakers over on the side too. So we'll tip it on its face, put a blanket down, tip it on its face, and take a look inside. All right, so here's the back side, and we actually have a play and a record here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, play and record here. We're a little antenna jack there. I don't see any other. This looks like can't really read it. Has a model number, but that's all kind of torn away. Yeah, make sure that we know that it's okay with the FCC on this one. And yeah, so let's open it up. And it looks like it just has these things that turn here, right? So we have the screws up on the top, but then we just have these turning deals down here. So it should be pretty fast to get open. Okay, so let's take a look at the size of those speakers. They feel pretty good too. And then they do have a crossover here and a horn tweeter. It looks pretty fancy to me. And there's our stereo, kind of cool. 4 transistors, and yeah, I'll be curious how to get that out. It looks a little different than the last one I worked on. Here's over on this side. I still don't see any markings or identifications. Here's this. Luckily, I know now that there's a patent pending on this guy. So I think what I'm going to do is, see if I can get the camera down here, take a closer look. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my phone and I'm going to take some pictures of all of this, and I think we'll be good. I'll pull it out and we'll see what wonders await us. Yeah, that's interesting. They don't have RCA jacks, they have this weird connector. Right, all that's out. Now I just have to figure out how to get it out. So I'm having a heck of a time figuring out how to get this out. The plate here is screwed down to here. So it's almost like it has to come up like that. But man, it's in there tight. And so I'm going to take the front or the front plate off and see if I can get to it through that. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe underneath here there's a screw or something, I don't know. Just pull these off. Well, they come off nice and easy. Right? Yeah, see, that doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it wants to move. It feels connected. It's connected right here, but that's... Ugh. I don't know if you can see inside there, there's kind of a reverse nut on there. And yeah, it doesn't look like... Yeah, that just doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem like that's supposed to come apart. Wow, what a mystery how to get this thing out. Well, I'm going to keep looking. I'll let you know when I figure it out. It looks like it has to come upwards, and it looks like those nuts have to come out. And they're kind of inverted nuts. And doesn't the one, so here's the one you can see a little bit better. See that? And so somehow I have to get that out. I don't know if I can find a tool to do that or what, but I think that has to come off, and then I think then this will lift up, and there must be something screwing that chassis in underneath here. I don't know, I looked, I couldn't find anybody else who'd had this problem, but I don't know. Well, I'll see what I can do. Okay, so I seem to have lost the footage of actually taking the faceplate off, and but so I at first, when I started working on this device, I got the Sam's PhotoFax on it, and Sam's had no information about how to get that faceplate off. But later I bought the actual Magnavox service manual, which I like a lot more, right? And in that service manual, then it shows you how to get that out, right? And it calls these things pail nuts. And then once you get the pail nuts out, there's these two screws here, and we'll get to that in a second. So here's what I ended up doing. I just took a bolt and brazed it to the end of a little piece of copper pipe, and then just filed the edges until they fit that pail nut correctly, right? Like that. And actually they fit pretty good. And then I was able to just kind of, you know, turn them out like that. So I don't know if there's a tool like that around. I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So this worked for me. So I think this screw and this screw right here is probably what's holding it in. Fingers crossed. Oof. Yeah, that's in there. So then, if all my dreams come true, this should just slide out. I don't know what you have to... No. Okay, so I'm pushing from the bottom. I don't want to... There it is. All right. What a cool looking chassis. Yeah, I don't know. Curious what that is there. And then, I don't know if you can see this. This is kind of strange. Just a resistor with its end floating in space. That looks very intentional. And then quite a few of these kind of couplets here for the tone stuff. Hopefully they're all good. I don't know, because some kind of big capacitors in the power supply here. I don't know what those are. 2,000 microfarad, not too big. But then, let's look at the bottom. So I think this is going to be really easy to work on. All right, so let's just take a peek around here. Looks like the power is coming right in here. It's on the circuit board, which is interesting because then there's not... yeah, so that's kind of interesting. There's our power transformer. And it's interesting that the capacitors are here because I don't see the rectifiers on this board. I think they might be right here. Yeah, a lot of big resistors there. There's your power amp. The back, it looks like you got your driver transistors here. And then here you have, your power transistors here, right? And then, yeah, some really nice looking switches there. And a lot of couplets. One thing that's cool is that all these tuning things are marked, right? That's going to make it easier to align. And then, yeah, that tuner section there. I don't know. I'll have to look at that more. I wonder if that's stereo stuff and that's the tuner section for both AM and FM. I don't know. Ooh. There's a section for, I don't know if you can see it, for timbre, which is interesting. Then the meter there, that looks kind of cheesy. All right, though, I'll be curious to see if it works. I don't know, I'll be curious if any of this works. I'll have to figure out on that connector. Where is it? On that connector there, what's what? I suspect the female pin there is ground and the rest are all inputs. Yeah, it connects to here, and then these are all kind of shielded cables. Yeah, so we'll have to look at that. But it looks like, so it'll have all the tape stuff comes out of here, goes to the phono. There you can see a better look at that rail that the whole chassis slides into. and where the screws go in. But it took a while to figure that out. But it is kind of nice once you figure it out, if you have the handy dandy tool. So let's look at the front. All right. Well, let's see if we can hook it up and get anything out of it. So that looks like our chassis and our date code. So looks like 1969, huh? Okay, so I took a little connector off the, I had to disconnect this from the phono. And so I have this plugged in, and I have it into a dim bulb tester. You can see that a little bit in the background. And then I do have an isolation transformer too. But then back here, I've got my speakers hooked up. And then I just have a little panel back here that this guy's got a, it just goes into the dummy load, or I can put it to the speakers. But it does go through a speaker protect circuit, just so that if I have an amplifier that's way out of, that's got a DC offset or something, it doesn't wreck the speakers. And let's see, what else do I need? Oh, and then I have to figure out a way to connect my signal generator into this guy. So I downloaded the Sam's PhotoFax, and I'm going to see if I can tell what this is and see if I can figure out a way to bring a signal into here. All right, so I have it, I think it's on AM, and turn that on. Turn that on. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so everything looks good. Looks like we're drawing about 0.16 amps, which is nothing. It's not much at all. Oh, I gotta make sure. Oh, no, the lights are on. Okay, so we're set for AM. Let's see if we can. Let's try FM. Nothing. Yeah, this looks very suspicious to me. Okay, so that should be our phono. There's our tape. What? Let's see. That's our volume. That's our bass. Okay, so it looks like we got controls that are dirty. I'm gonna clean up those controls and see what we get then. Okay, well, let's just, one thing I didn't do before is I wanted to check the voltage coming out of our power supply. We should have done that first, I guess. So we got minus 35 volts, and this whole chassis runs on a negative voltage, which helps these transistors, I guess. Okay, well, that looks good. I'm not sure where to check the other voltages. I'm a little confused how here we've got here we got 34 volts here coming through this coil here, and then somehow we have minus 42 here. That seems a little sketchy to me. But it does look like we start at this voltage and then we move our way down here, and then this voltage here is regulated to 14.8. So let's see if we can find those. Okay, so let's look at our voltages, and it's kind of hard to go between it, so I just kind of wrote what the voltage is supposed to be on the board, and I don't know if you can see that. But this one's supposed to be 42, and it's 36, but it's supposed to be 36 right out of the rectifiers, right? So the rectifiers are right here, and there's 36, and that's a straight connection over here. I don't know, that seems right to me, but I mean 42 seems too high to me, but I don't get that. Anyway, but then if I go up here, I should have 31 and I have 27. So we're going to see that they're all kind of down some, which I think is probably okay. And we should have 15 up here, but it's down some. And then over here, this is our regular. I think this transistor is doing our regulation. And that one is 16.49. That makes me a little bit nervous because that's supposed to be 14.8 regulated. And so there's probably a Zener diode. Yeah, this one right here. I wonder if that Zener diode is off a little bit. Yeah, 16.7. I think if they're trying to get 14 point something out of here, this should be a 15 volt Zener diode. And that should be better regulated. I'll have to check that. But I might just have to order that Zener and replace it. And I think that'll bring the voltage into spec. I mean, the bottom line is everything's close enough. I think, so I think if I want to inject a signal in here, I think this is one of our switches right here. And then we go from the switch through this little capacitor into this 22K. And then we kind of go into this preamp section, right? It's a little bit surprising to me because the phono section doesn't go into a separate preamp. Let's see if we can find this C89 here. Okay, so this is interesting. It started working on one channel. And I'm going to put that on the dummy load just so I don't get a copyright hit on that. But if, so I have my yellow hooked up to my output, right? And I can come right to the speaker output here. One channel, I got stuff coming up, and that's off FM. And, whoops. And that's off the other channel, right? So one of my channels is dead. And if I come over to, let's see, I'm going to hook this back up to the speaker. Okay, so that's FM coming out. Okay, so we should have, so I'm going into my dummy, my 8-ohm dummy load. I've got 300 millivolts peak to peak coming into pin 8 on here, and that should be the aux input or the tape. And so we're getting a signal on the one side, and then if I go to 9, hold on. So there's 8. So that's our right channel. And so we're not getting anything. So we should be able to see, if I go to 9 here, I should be able to see it, I think right here. Okay, this is the good take. All right, so we have our signal coming in. And I've got the volume down. Well, I don't know. Okay, so we got our signal coming in. Right, nice clean signal. Comes up to here, this R206. Looks good. Comes out, still looks good. It's kind of attenuated. Then it comes all the way up here to our switch. Right? And then comes out of the switch through down to here, across this coupling capacitor here. That looks good. Through this resistor, which is probably biasing it, and then to the base of this transistor right here. And then from the emitter, then we see we've got, how big are we there? About 44 millivolts. We kind of have the same thing kind of coming out of there. And so then that should come over to the base over here. So this is that second transistor. So we've kind of traced it, you know, through this capacitor here, through this resistor, and we're kind of coming, and we can see it coming to the base here, and then we're going to look at the collector here. We'll check this voltage here, and then, but I think it should then come through like that, and this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the signal into both sides and then just compare what's coming out of here, the two different sides. Okay, so I've gone through this part of the circuit quite a bit, and finally when it comes down to it, when it comes out of this circuit and we come out here on the one channel, it's about 148 millivolts, and on the other channel it's about 180. And so I'm wondering if this capacitor up here was replaced, and I wonder if this one's just very leaky and is attenuating that, but it doesn't seem to be the reason that the circuit is failing altogether, right? And so that I think if we look up at, I want to show you something else. Okay, so like I say, you know, everything this way back seems to be passing signal. It seems a little diminished in one of the channels, but I think when I recap it, that'll probably take care of that. I don't know. But then you come to this loudness control here, and then to this bass switch here, right? And so I'm going to check the loudness switch. I'm just going to put a signal directly in here and take a look at it, and we'll compare the two channels. All right, so I've got the scope hooked up. Let me see. All right, each channel's at about 1 volt. Let's switch it on. All right. And then, so I've got a signal coming out of here. What's that? That's, let me turn that down a little bit. So I'm going to do 100 millivolts peak to peak. And I'm just going to put it right in. Okay, that looks pretty good. So that's 3.48 volts. And about half that. So looks like one channel's quite a bit weaker than the other one. But both channels are going. Yeah, so one's about half what the other one is. So then let's come into the bass control here, and oh, I see. Okay, they're reversed. So if I go into the bass control, look at how big that signal is there. That's 4 volts. Then if I come to the same place over here, that's almost 4 volts. So it really seemed like this signal, if I go from here to here, we're really getting attenuated. And that's not great, right? So we can see that right here it goes from the center wiper through here, through a capacitor, and let's see where that goes. To this resistor right here. Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad. And then this one, center wiper comes to here, and then this resistor here. Well, that's odd. I wasn't expecting to see that. Here. I should probably not be doing it like that. Okay, so I just put a little capacitor in it. 3.8 and 4. So there's still a difference between them, but not as much as so if I come in here. So what did that tell me? It tells me that it's looking like it's kind of working. I don't get it. So, I don't know. I don't get it. It sure seemed to be working where before it wasn't. Well, that's kind of interesting. It's working now. So I cleaned the controls, or it's mostly working. I think if you
Maybe you're like me and you got a big studio that sucks up some serious bandwidth. Now with
you see this channel doesn't seem very high, and then
Wi-Fi, you're good to go. Guess what? They didn't just stop investing.
see this control is still screwed up, but this base control,
Still the same price.
although I wasn't able to show it in the video, this base control was cutting off that one channel. And as soon as I started messing with it, then it started coming back. It's still not perfect. I'm going to put it into the dummy load, but you can still get it to kind of occasionally cut out that channel. Now it's getting pretty good. But I need to double check the solder joints on here, but I think it's just this base control, which is kind of unusual that bass control, if it's not working right, can cut off the signal. And that's what was happening there. Yeah, I can't get it to repeat now, but just a little bit ago I was able to kind of tap it and it would fail. But it does look like, here, let me put it back on speakers.
Getting to know you always comes first.
This is FM.
Minimum monthly payment required. See carecredit.com for details. For Mother's Day, I'm surprised.
Oh, there's our stereo light coming on. And our gauge is kind of working too. This is pretty dirty. Of course, I'll have to clean that off. But we do have our little gauge there, and that does seem to be working now. All I have on it is a little lead for the antenna. Well, this explains a thing or two. Yeah, so if we start over here at 20 hertz and we're kind of flat to about 84, then we come up a little bit and then we just nosedive, and we nosedive right around 1 kilohertz, and my tone signal that I was using was 1 kilohertz, right? So yeah, so I don't know, I maybe recapping will fix this. If not, there's some work to be done. Yeah, and it really attenuates. Let me try the other channel. Now, okay, let's try it. What the hell? So we have this big peak. We're crappy down here. Wow. Yeah, something bad's going on. Well, I'm going to recap it, and we'll come back and we'll take a look after that and see. But that explains, I was like, you know, if we go to 1 kilohertz, yeah, both of them are diving down right at 1 kilohertz, or it's diving down in here, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna, yeah, let's try this. I'm gonna put the probes on the other side of the tone circuit, and let's see what it does there. So we're coming straight into the, we're skipping the bass control and the loudness control, and we're coming right into the beginnings of our amp, and what we're getting is this waveform here, or this spectrum here. Huh, interesting. Anyway, yeah. Here we're not being it's almost like we're not being boosted here at all, but yeah, this doesn't look good either, right? This is off quite a bit. And let me try the other channel. Yeah, same kind of thing. So it looks like we're having problems in both the tone circuit and the main amp. And so yeah, I think it needs a recap. But I thought it'd be fun to take a look at this first. Alright, so we replaced the power supply caps and I tested it and they all seem to be working. There's this one over here. So next I think we're going to, this Zener diode right here, that's a 15 volt Zener diode. And let's take a look. I think I showed this before, but you got minus 16 volts or almost 17 volts across it. And so I'm going to replace that, and that's should help that the regulated 15 volts or the regulated 14.7 volts, right? Yeah, that's coming out of this transistor right here. So I'll pull that out. All right, let's see what we got now. $14.9, and I'm going to flip it over and then we'll look at the test point. Yeah, that looks much closer. It's not as high. It's supposed to be 14.7. It's awfully close. Okay, so now I'm going to recap the rest of it. I recapped the power supply, and I'm going to recap the rest of it. And yeah, we'll see you back after that. Oh, here's our knobs out of the ultrasonic cleaner. Pretty nice.
Same day store pickup. Getting your job done?
Wines pair well with everything.
Well, so that's so we're all recapped, and I fixed that diode, and I also replaced a couple of resistors that I think was kind of making the channels off balance. They were kind of between the main amp and the input. A couple of 2.2K resistors. One of them was way off, and I replaced that. And so we're sounding pretty good. It's kind of bassy, and I think that's what we saw when we did the original scan. So let's do another scan and see what it looks like now, see if it's changed much. So after the recap, it sounds way too bassy, and I think if I put the signal in kind of directly, so this is the aux input or the tape input. So here's our square wave, and it's really not looking great. So this is at 1 kilohertz, and let me make sure I have a.
Whoever is unjust, hear the trumpets, hear the pipers. One.
Standing there on like a guest. Too late, love could have been easy. All you had to do is full charm, but when beauty met the beast, chief.
Well, that sounds pretty great. I mean, I'm really happy with how it sounds. Well, here's our well, here we're taking a look at the frequency response, and it still isn't great. I mean, we have, 6 or 7 dB difference between our upper and lower. That's with everything turned down. Here I'm going to turn it up too on the treble and the bass. And let's try it again. Actually a little bit better. So I wonder if the knobs are meant to be in the center, or closer to the center. I don't know. It looks like when the bass knob is all the way to one side, it's just a pass through. But yeah, I don't know. But it sounds like $1,000,000. It really sounds good playing through my phone to it. Okay, let's see how much power it puts out. One thing, this tape input is you got to put almost 3 volts peak to peak through it to get it to clip. So so I don't think you're going to get full volume out of this with coming in the aux port, but I also don't want to mess with it because it's still pretty loud. So I've got about 3 volts peak to peak coming through my signal generator. I'm at 1 kilohertz, and we're going to turn this guy up. It's both channels, and you see they do diverge a little bit, but I'm going to turn this one off. Whoops. Okay, so we're just starting to clip at, come on. Okay, so we're going to turn our signal up. I just hit that other one. And right around 23 volt, or right around 8 volts. So 8 volts into 8 ohms, that's going to be about 8 watts. So it's not the strongest guy in the world, but it does sound good. I was listening to it in the shop here. And yeah, let's check the other channel. Okay. Let's turn it up. Start to clip right at about, yep, right around 8 volts. So, and the formula there is the RMS voltage squared divided by the number of ohms. And we've got 8 ohms. And it just happens that we've got 8, so it all works out. So I got about 8 watts coming out of it. And so yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the distortion. So I'm going to start out right near clipping. It looks like we're right here, just under one, about 7.5. Now let me turn it down. So that's pretty quiet. Yeah, I'm a little surprised by how good that is, right? Huh. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. So that's about 0.27%. Yeah, interesting. There's this crazy peak over here. But that's above audible. It's about 24 kilohertz. Huh, very interesting. All right. Well, that's it for part 1 of this fixing up this old AstroSonic from 1969. Went pretty good. I don't know, I think I did a little more signal tracing than I think I needed to. I should have probably looked right in front of the power amp to see if I had signal there, and if not, went one direction or the other direction. Instead I started at the beginning and worked my way through. That's alright. Fixed a few power problems, recapped it, and I think it sounds pretty good. And the signal response isn't too bad. And you know, this isn't a very powerful amp, but it really does a nice job of filling the room, and so I like it. And it's really a nice circuit board. I mean, it seems like everything on here is done in kind of a quality way, which is very cool. It's always nice to work on circuit boards like that. And so yeah, so I think part 2 I'm going to do the alignment and get the radio working at its top, and I think part 3 will be getting the phonograph working and adding a Bluetooth. So if you enjoy looking at these old stereos like I do, just please hit like and subscribe, and thanks for coming along for the ride.